Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, live from Studio West. The Cleveland Browns bailed out the Green Bay Packers by beating the Washington Commanders on Sunday. So I expect Congressman Mike Gallagher from the 8th Congressional District in Wisconsin to be wearing Browns gear this morning. Let's bring the picture. No, he's not. And you know we did that for you, Congressman.
I don't think I own any Browns gear. If ever you loaned me any, it's been lost since I just moved offices. So I have to dig it out from whatever hole it was placed into.
Do you at least want to publicly acknowledge that you owe the Browns?
I rooted for the Browns for the first time in my life, and it was beautiful, Hugh. For the first time, we were aligned on matters of football, and it felt good. It felt like the universe was aligned, Hugh. So I very much appreciate what the Browns did, and the fact that the Packers now control their destiny. They're one win away from being in the playoffs. Is a remarkable situation.
Dwayne, can we please get the first part of that cut and put that on the permanent board? All right? Leave off the Packers stuff. With just the permanent board of Mike Gallagher praising the Browns. I want that. Congressman, if the 20 had not frustrated the 200 yesterday, that's how I'm explaining. There are 200 Republicans who want Kevin McCarthy. There are 20 who don't. If the 200 had not been frustrated, what would you be doing today as chairman of the Select Committee on China?
Well, what we would have done last night is actually pass a bill getting rid of the tens of thousands of IRS agents that Team Biden and Team Pelosi in the House created. So we've already missed an opportunity to pass a common sense bill that helps working Americans. Today, we would be passing a rules package that would basically stand up the 118th Congress, as well as create the Select Committee on China, which I'm supposed to chair. So I assume we're not going to do that today because we're going to go back to the floor around noon and have another debate and vote on who should be the speaker. The key point here, Hugh, is that nothing can happen until we elect a speaker. I haven't even been sworn in as a member of Congress. This is like Schroeder.
Well, there's an upside to everything.
Yes.
There's an upside to everything, Congressman. If we keep the Green Bay Packers fans out of the Congress, I guess I might be. All right, let's talk serious. What happened to
Congress right now, Hugh? They have no representation. It's a tragedy.
Tell me what happened overnight. Did anything happen overnight? Because what has become clear to me this morning is a lot of Republicans are very unhappy with the 20 people. Very unhappy.
Well, we went into recess or adjourned, if memory serves, around 4:35-ish last night. You know, I actually was hoping we'd stay in and vote and just keep voting to make the point that we're not going anywhere. McCarthy's not backing down. Everyone they've mentioned as a possible alternative has endorsed McCarthy. You know, Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise gave his nominating speeches on the second and third vote, respectively. But we adjourned. I assume I wasn't involved in this. I assumed McCarthy and his team were having active conversations and negotiations with the holdouts. But here's the thing, Hugh. I don't know what else they have left to give, because if you look at what's happened the last 2 months, every request for a rules change, every concern that the 20 have voiced, in almost every case, McCarthy has at least met them halfway and made big concessions in terms of the rules. And I actually think a lot of these are constructive changes that will bring the House back to regular order, that will give your rank and file members more of a voice in the process. He's also laid out a series of commitments on basic fiscal sanity, a return to fiscal sanity. I know that's a concern for a lot of the holdouts. That's a concern for me, and that's something we haven't seen in the last 4 years. That was good. So I went into this thinking that it was just about the policy. It was about the rules changes. And I think for certain members, it is about that. I would single out Chip Roy. Admittedly, I'm friends with Chip Roy. I have an enormous respect for his intellect. He actually believes things. I disagree with him on the tactics right now, but I think for him, it is about a series of rules changes. But having gotten a ton of concessions and then having demanded more, for others, I just don't think it's about the policy or the rules changes. It's become about personality, or maybe this is uncharitable. It's become about scoring points on social media, and that's unfortunate because, again, we can't do anything until we elect a speaker. We're dead in the water right now. And this may seem like just a day here, a day there, but all of a sudden you waste a week, you waste January, and you're behind the curve for the first quarter. And
we've wasted 2 months.
Time is of the essence.
We've wasted 2 months. You can't organize a committee. You can't line up witnesses. You can't do anything. So we've wasted 2 months. Let me ask you about how many are. I just want to confirm my numbers. I am told there are at least 50. Absolutely nobody but Kevin votes, and that therefore no one will be elected except Kevin McCarthy or someone from the Democratic caucus. Am I right about that?
Yeah, and I would put that as the floor on the number. It might be a little bit higher than that.
So I want people to understand the facts. Now let me go to potential tactics. Why not nominate each of the 20 members in turn to see how many they have? I mean, just hold vote after vote. How long does it take to hold a vote?
Well, it takes about an hour, a little over an hour to hold the vote, because it's the only vote where you're not sticking a card in. You actually have to stand up. You go alphabetically. Well, we've already gone through at least 3 or 2. They nominated Biggs, and then Byron Donalds got a vote. Jim Banks got 1 vote, although neither of them were asking to be in the mix.
But I mean, nominate one of the 200, an avowed McCarthyite. Go get David Joyce from Ashtabula, who's my congressman from my hometown. Ask him to nominate Matt Gaetz, and let's see how many votes Matt gets. And then go and vote for Byron. Go and vote for Scott Perry. I just had Selena Zito on, and I want to know if you're hearing this, what you're hearing on your phone. She's been in the 10th congressional district, which is General Perry's district, and he's a warrior. He's a good man, very much more conservative than I am, and I'm pretty conservative, so that's where he is politically. They're very angry. He's going to lose his margin of victory. He's going to lose that seat.
I would say, in terms of what I received via text, via email from people in my district yesterday, it was about 100 to 1. The 100 being, this is crazy. You guys look like fools. Can we get our act together and just get to work and stop the obstructionism? And the 1 being, hey, support someone else for speaker. I mean, overwhelmingly, I think the American people, or at least, Republicans in my district, understand that this is a bad look. And, we have a narrow majority, right? We're entering divided government. I think we all have to recognize nobody's going to get 100% of what they want. There are things I want to happen over the next 2 years that I know will never happen, just because even if we pass the bill in the House, a democratically controlled Senate's not going to pass it, and the president would never sign it. So we can meaningfully advance the ball down the field in terms of legislation, but a lot of the work we're going to be doing is in 2 buckets. The first is basic oversight, and there we can do a lot. Having Jim Jordan as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, my gosh, that's the best person for that role. Think about what he could do in terms of oversight in that role. Think about what James Comer can do as chair of the Oversight Committee when it comes to getting to the bottom of where this coronavirus pandemic, investigating the series of failures in terms of our response, the hundreds of billions of dollars worth of theft of COVID dollars that happened online, or exploiting weak state unemployment systems. And then, of course, things like the Select Committee on China. That's where we can have a massive impact, holding the Biden administration accountable. And then the second bucket, Hugh, I'd say, is just pulling the emergency brake on all the progressive craziness we've seen over the last 2 years. And there, you think about it, the fundamental mistake Biden made is interpreting a narrow election victory for a massive progressive mandate to do transformative change. Well, neither can we interpret a narrow victory in the last election as a mandate for burning down the House. We can interpret it as the American people saying, we want less crazy from the Biden administration and more common sense. And it's up to us as Republicans to bring the common sense and be the adults in the room.
Congressman, we got time for a couple more questions. I just want people to understand what we're not doing. If the Select Committee, China got ahead of us more yesterday. They probably launched another ship. They probably got another gazillion views on TikTok. You didn't have a hearing with a witness to talk about what TikTok is doing to children. What else didn't, you mentioned the IRS agent, but education of the country as to the peril we are in on the national security side seems to me to be the most important thing that didn't get done. And how long, did the 20 of them have any explanation for why they don't want that to happen?
Well, again, I think there's kind of two camps within the 20. If I understand Chip Roy's argument, it's that the rules changes are constructive, but they don't go far enough. And until you have a different composition of the rules committee itself, you can't enforce those rules. And then I think there's others that just they just want to block Kevin personally, and there's no amount of concessions that could ever get them there. I didn't hear an explanation, and I think some of them don't see the urgency. They're fine with us not doing anything for the next month and not standing up committees and things like that. In terms of China, I just would point out, maybe bring it home to the Midwest, one thing we're seeing is China or Chinese-linked entities buying up a bunch of land in America near military bases. That's happening. In some ways, it's getting around the well, I'm not going to use an acronym, Hugh, because you've trained me well. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, otherwise known as CFIUS, is supposed to scrutinize these with enhanced authorities we've given them. And in many cases, that's not happening. We want to go out and hold a field hearing where this is happening and understand why the CCP is doing this and what threat it poses to our military facilities. That's one. The other thing we can do right now, the more we learn about TikTok, the more we realize it's basically just a weapon for the Chinese Communist Party to suck up your data that they can use, or to actively harm Americans in terms of the algorithms that they feed them. It's why we've called it digital fentanyl. We need to pass legislation building upon the government ban that we just did in the omnibus, and expanding the ban nationally. That's a missed opportunity right there. And then finally, just explaining to the American people why things like defending Taiwan or helping Taiwan defend itself matter before it's too late, before we see another massive deterrence failure like we saw in Ukraine, and we find ourselves on the cusp of a huge kinetic confrontation with the Chinese Communist Party, for which we are not currently prepared because we are not doing enough to rebuild the military. That's what's not happening right now.
Yeah, it is January of 1941 when it comes to the Chinese. And the 20 House Republicans are saying, pay no attention to the Japanese Imperial Fleet. Don't pay. We want to focus on whether or not we have committee chairmanship. Please go find Chip Roy. Give him my regards. We don't want to smear people. This is so insane, and it's killing our party, and it's killing the country. Mike Gallagher, thank you.